Hey everyone, today we have an exclusive look at the all-new Battlegroups releasing on February 25th in the Fire and Steel DLC pack. My name is John, I'm one of the community managers here on the team, and we're going to be talking with the design team about each of the 4 new Battlegroups, so you know exactly what to expect when they hit the battlefield later this month. So to do that, we're going to be looking at 2 different matches played by our team, which will showcase these new battle groups. And there's a ton to cover, and I've got some great folks with me. So I think what we are going to do is we're just going to hit play on this replay, and we'll introduce the team and get right to it. So first up, we have Jason.
Hello, I'm Jason, Balance Lead on Company of Heroes 3.
And Darren.
Hey, my name's Darren Chen, and I'm one of the gameplay designers for Company of Heroes 3.
And last but certainly not least, Will.
Hello, I'm Will. I am the senior designer on Company of Heroes 3.
Okay, so folks, we are looking at a brand new map in Co3, Crossing in the Woods, which is a classic map, right, Will?
It is, yeah. We're releasing, as we did in the previous anniversary, classic maps. We won't go into too much detail yet, but yeah, this is a 2v2 version of Crossing in the Woods, which was a Co1 and then a Co2, and now a Co3 map.
Okay, excellent. So obviously we are looking at a match between 2 U.S. forces and 2 Wehrmacht players. Jason, do you want to set up what we're going to be seeing here in this match?
Yeah, so today we're going to be doing a quick shotcast of a USF versus Wehrmacht game, and the battle groups we're showing off are the new ones coming in the next patch, which is Wehrmacht Terror and USF Heavy Weapons.
Okay, so it looks like we have Jason Tarnations in the red, Will in purple, both as Wehrmacht, and Darren here in the teal, and our other balance designer, Colin Hasu, in the blue. So let's maybe talk about some of the early decision making with these battle groups. Darren, as the U.S. player here, can you talk about what is it that you're thinking about with this, with the new heavy weapon battle group, and some of the early decisions that you're going to be making here?
Yep, so for the heavy weapon battle group, I am trying to go down to the left tree. Essentially, I am playing WSC as a starting building because I know I want those early machine guns to get access to the 50 cal fairly early on, so I'll be playing primarily with machine guns and support infantry until I can get those 50 cals out to essentially provide greater fire support against all the infantry targets in the game, and maybe some anti-light vehicle if Jason pumps out a vehicle during this match.
Okay, so from the Wehrmacht side, Jason, or maybe let's jump to you, Will. Here, what are some of the early decisions that you're making with the terror battle group?
Funny enough, I've got a similar decision to make. I'm going to go into early HMGs because the first thing I unlock is ambush camouflage on my MG42 teams. This gives you a very powerful early strike, so if you can get your HMG teams into cover, they go camouflage, I do extra damage on that first burst. So I'm trying to lay out early ambushes, trying to goad Colin into my lines. I'm currently building up some more defenses to make sure I have the cover I need to get that ambush camouflage as well.
Okay. Jason, what about you? Are you doing the same game plan as Will, or are you doing something a little bit differently?
Yeah, so I'm doing the classic heavy tank rush on my side. So you have 2 sides to the tree for Terror, and on the right side, instead of going for the ambush that you can get with HMGs, you can go for heavy gunnery, which allows your vehicles to start suppressing infantry. Now, it's going to be a little bit before I get to that, and also Mirage is doing a good job of denying this fuel, which made this much harder to show off. But eventually I'll be using that quite extensively throughout the game. But yeah, as I navigate through the right tree of the Terror Battle Group, I'm going to be looking to get to that King Tiger as soon as possible.
Okay. So I know those are sort of the big set pieces, the show pieces, the heavy tanks. It's going to be a little bit before we get to them. So Darren, can you maybe talk about the game plan for you and Colin here early game? What is Colin doing differently than what you had set up on your side?
Between the both of us, we had very similar early starts because heavy weapons, the first two items for both the battle groups are the same between the two factions. The main difference between us is going to be later on in the game where the unlocks start branching out a bit more, but for showcasing heavy weapons, we essentially play a more similar style because we want to show off those things like the 50 cal heavy machine gun, which you should be hearing soon later in the match with its very powerful audio, thanks to what our audio designers have hooked up.
Yeah. So, Will, did you maybe want to talk about some of the new audio that's coming in with the battle groups and maybe some of the VO stuff that we've been working on?
Yeah, sure. So, because we were creating new battle groups, it gave us an opportunity to get back into the recording studio with a lot of our talent that we previously used at release. So, for example, we've brought in the characters who played our heavy tanks across all the factions. We've recorded new voice lines for them. So you'll hear the same voice actor for, say, the King Tiger, the King Tiger, the Churchill Croc, and the Elephant, as you would have in the previous heavy vehicles. But we've got new voice lines for them, some unique things, their abilities, for example, get called out. We've also recorded brand new audio for the US heavy tank, because previously there was no heavy tank for the US faction.
Right.
So we brought in a completely new actor for that. And it also gave us an opportunity to revisit some audio we weren't happy with, including the US faction's intel character, that voice over your shoulder that you hear throughout the game. We had an opportunity to re-record, so we've done all of their lines from scratch. When we originally designed that character, we wanted to go with a very energetic but naive US faction because it was them entering the war for the first time in North Africa. But over time, that's not settled as well as we'd like. It seems a little too jovial. So we've gone with a more serious, straightforward officer for the US intel, and we hope you like it.
Okay. And Darren, it looks like you've got your first 50 cal here on the field.
Yep, you can also see the assault half track running around in the back there. It's our next branch for the heavy weapons, so essentially upgrades all your half tracks to be assault carriers, which are unique that people can shoot out of them, and it gets your half tracks a little bit more health, so they can be used more in that sort of mobile assault carrier role rather than just hanging back active as a support vehicle.
Yeah, and I think this demonstrates the main idea behind heavy weapons for USF. The concept being that we didn't really have a battle group for USF that kind of synergized well with their team weapon play and their half-track play. And you'll see that in this battle group that there are quite a few mechanics that essentially allow players to go harder into this kind of play style. So the first few picks, the first two really, the assault carrier, again, makes your half-track more durable, but has the extra effect of you can put infantry in it and they can fire out of it. So there's quite a few different combinations that USF can go for using this. You can still upgrade this into all of the other half-track forms, and there's going to be an upgrade later on called exchangeable parts that will build on that. But right now it's just in conversion of the regular M3 half-track, so it's not a completely different new one. It'll just upgrade your existing ones to do so. But then for the 50 cal, that's a paid upgrade that you have to buy on your 30 cals, which significantly boosts them for that cost, making them one of the best machine guns in the game. They have very powerful suppression, penetration, and high damage. But they still retain some of the weaknesses of the base USF machine gun, which is that they have a low kill.
Oh, I see Will's making short work of the gun mortar carriage here on Colin's side.
I had intended to back out. I didn't want to risk it. That mortar round was already in the air. It was not my fault.
You must guide the mortar with RNG to take out your enemy's half.
Yeah, right on the back deck.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me about the Wehrmacht game plan here, Jason. What are some of your thoughts at this moment in the game?
So as you can see here, I'm actually running around with the base 251 half track. This is not something you will normally see Wehrmacht do all that often. But one of the first picks that I got as terror is heavy gunnery, which allows you to activate an ability on your units, on your vehicles with machine guns, which allow them to suppress. Now you do have to pay for them, pay for the active, so you can't have this active all of the time, but it allows you to get suppression from sources you normally don't get, which suppression being kind of a theme for the battle group. Now, I am doing the heavy tank rush, which is one of the choices you can go for, which does reduce the amount of power the battle group gives you in the early to mid game. While I think, Will, you went for some of the earlier game stuff. Yeah, I see that you have Interrogate as well.
Yeah.
So Terror can kind of serve one of two purposes depending on which path you kind of go. You can go for a very high early game output, or early mid game output, or you could go for a higher focus on getting out the King Tiger. So yeah, I think we'll show off Interrogate a little bit after, but Mirage is doing a good job of keeping me off of the mid half of this map here.
That was a fun little dive.
Well, except for the other half of the army getting pinned down on the left-hand side.
Yes.
All right, so let's again look at the Allied side here. Darren, can you talk about maybe some of the decisions that you're making in the battle group tree, and maybe some of the differences that Colin has on his side as well?
So for what I'm going for with the battle group is I'm going to be playing primarily more into the team weapons, as there is on the left-hand side. I'd more focus on the specific parts of the team weapons, but I have also gone into exchangeable parts that allows me to swap out my half-tracks weapons once they're upgraded for no cost with a short cooldown, though there is a longer cooldown for swapping afterwards.
Yeah. So exchangeable parts allows you to go kind of convert freely between the 75 mil, the quad, the medical, and the assault carrier variants, which gives players a lot of flexibility in terms of using the half tracks. You can convert these even in combat. There's a quick delay to it, but you can do it, so you can kind of catch people off guard. But the main purpose is to give players that kind of flexibility, especially with the new half-track type. And I think Colin here is trying to use the different forms, as he's had the assault carrier, but he's also had the 75 mil as well.
If I can just interject as well, what we're seeing at the moment is one of the abilities on Terra called Jericho Trumpet. So this is a loiter that you deploy. It doesn't attack any of the ground troops, but it does instill fear in them. It slows them down, it makes them less performant in combat. It's a great way of denying an area for an extended period of time. And it has that distinctive wail of the Stuka as its Jericho Trumpets playing.
Yeah, so it's a really, really powerful sort of area of effect debuff against the enemy there. I was going to say about the half tracks. You know, it seems like a very powerful ability to be able to swap them on the fly like that, but it's a pretty significant cooldown, right?
Yep. Once you do your first swap, you do have to wait 2 minutes before you can swap back again. So you do have to make a decision of when you want to swap up the half track at that time period, because you won't be able to get the other form afterwards for a bit. It's also, if you're going into the significant half track play, you do have to be careful, particularly on a map like this, where things like if you have 1 or 2 pack guns, it is very easy to lose your half tracks, because unless you're the assault carrier, all the other half tracks still retain their fairly low health, which makes them easy to take out when caught out of position.
Yeah. Exchangeable parts increases your utility and your flexibility with them, but it doesn't actually straight up buff any of your half tracks. So they're still the same old squishy light vehicle. So you do have to be very careful when using it.
It's like we're seeing strong points from the half track, so this is another ability from the heavy weapons battle groups where all half tracks will generate an aura. It will slow your half tracks down, but it will give a significant buff to all your team weapons who are fighting around, though it seems like Will's mortar is kind of hard countering the team weapons around the half track.
Yeah. It gives really powerful buffs in exchange, but as you can see there, it kind of in this scenario, Will's already kind of counterplayed it by pushing back a lot of the 50 cals with the Nebel Warper. So use with caution here.
Mm-hmm. And I guess if you focus fire, that half track giving that buff, then that'll negate it pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Talking about like Jericho Trumpet real quick. One of the themes of terror is essentially this idea of instilling fear in your enemy and terrifying them in various ways. There's a lot of emphasis on suppression, on debuffing your enemies, or in reverse, exploiting the fact that your enemy has their heads down. So one of the abilities I have right now, which is active on my Panzer Grenadier, is called No Quarter, which gives your infantry a combat bonus to damage, or to their accuracy, when they are near enemy suppressed units, which gives you a reason to kind of really push up and synergize with some of the other suppression mechanics that you're getting. The alternative pick, though, I don't. Will actually shows this off later. Is for the fatherland, defend the fatherland. Sorry, and we'll show that off after. But yeah.
So I feel like we're kind of nearing the mid to maybe just starting to get into the sort of mid game here. Darren, it feels like you and Colin are on the back foot here. What decisions are you making with the battle groups here to try and make a bit of a comeback?
So you can first see on our unit what units we have. We have both gone back into riflemen, and this is probably going to be quite common for heavy weapons because unlike some of the other battle groups where you have elite infantry who can act as replacement for your riflemen, you kind of need to go into riflemen if you want to combat infantry unit. So if you're not making tons of half tracks and more than like multiple machine guns past the first two, you will need to rely a bit more on your core. Core infantry to continue the fight because there's only so much obviously a machine gun can do in this game. It's not really good at pushing on its own, and particularly on a map like this, you do need infantry to get over the river and start pushing the enemy's side.
You've unlocked rapid reposition as well, right?
Yeah. So that will actually allow me to get my team weapons into the fight faster when they're out of combat. So we have rapid reposition is a movement and rotation buff to all your team weapons, and so as long as they're not engaged with combat with the enemy, so it allows you to essentially move up team weapons pretty quickly in your in friendly territory to where they need to be in anticipation to attack or just moving up to reinforce your line.
Okay. I feel bad. Will, did we miss your V1 rocket? I think we might have.
No, not yet. Not
Okay,
been
it's
unlocked
coming
yet.
up.
I am saving up. In fact, it is due any second now. Because I have got 3 CPs, and it unlocks at 4, unless I'm mistaken.
Okay.
So I am just hammering at Colin, keeping him back, and then when he comes in for a renewed attack, I think I'll have it saved up and ready to go.
Okay. So
It's now unlocked. There we go.
So can we maybe talk about some of those later game unlocks and abilities for both Terror and the US? Obviously, we have some pretty big decisions there. Jason, can you maybe talk about like how did we balance some of those later game unlocks with each other?
Yeah. So Terror is one of the few battle groups that is going to have 2 really powerful abilities on either end.
V1's fired. V1's fired.
Yep.
Oh, there it is. You don't get the reticule. That's the observer.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Just on the corner there. A little bit of a whiff, but
yeah,
it was nice
so,
and splashy.
Actually, something to showcase there, though, I think Will whipped it a little bit there, is that the V1 doesn't actually drop traditional artillery flares. There will be an audio cue that should be quite distinctive to all players to indicate that the V1 has fired. But unlike normal artillery and off maps, there will be no visual tell. To the opponents, at least. The allies of the using player will see a reticule indicating where the V1 will be going, but the opponents basically have to guess. And you have to try and avoid the V1. Now, the V1 will take quite a while to actually arrive between the audio, the firing and the landing of it, but again, it can land anywhere with no essentially.
Okay. And I imagine it packs quite a punch once it does
Yes.
connect, right?
There are very few things in the game that can survive being hit by a V1.
All right.
But in exchange, the V1 is also straight up the most expensive artillery or off map in the game.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about the U.S. forces here? What late game decisions are they going to have to start making here?
Yes. You wanna? Okay. For the USF battle group, they have actually multiple choices. So on the right side of the tree, they have two very powerful column units that they can use. Now these are exclusive. One is the Pershing heavy tank, and the other is the 3-inch towed AT gun. Both very powerful late game units that eventually Colin and Darren here are going to use to great effect. The Pershing is the good old Pershing from old. It's old twice, but it's a very fast, very mobile heavy tank. Now, it's not quite as powerful as some of the other standard heavy tanks, but it is still a fast and mobile heavy tank. So it's quite lethal.
We'll say it is just as powerful as, say, the Tiger in terms of like putting out damage, but its biggest drawback is, you're going to see later, is its armor is much lower than any other heavy in the game, is its biggest drawback.
Yes, but in exchange, the mobility it gets it makes it a bit of a favorite among us, as there's a lot of things that you can do with it that a lot of normal heavy tanks simply cannot do. Now, the 3-inch towed AT gun is a very powerful towed AT gun, which means it cannot move on its own. It will come in with a half track. Now, in exchange for this, it has the power of any of our standard super heavy AT guns, which is very long range, very high pen, very high damage. But one of the things that set the 3-inch apart not only is the synergies with some of the other team weapon mechanics in the rest of the battle group, but also the ability for it to fire artillery barrages, essentially. So it acts as somewhat of a hybrid between the super heavy AT gun with some artillery performance.
So I know we've been talking a lot about these sort of specific decisions that we're making and specific units and abilities in each of these battle groups. I'm kind of wondering if you can talk about sort of general play style. And maybe we can start with the U.S. forces heavy weapons. Like, what are your sort of like big picture objectives or strategies with heavy weapons?
For the heavy weapons battle group, we're looking more into that sort of WSC half-track play that USF generally hasn't really gone for before. Generally, it is the barracks play, or battle group infantry with the WSC, where this is more focused on the WSC itself as a whole. So like all the units that arrive from it as well as the half-tracks that you can get. That puts an emphasis on them and extending their viability to the end of the game with the various unlocks that you can pick in this battle group. It is probably the most dedicated team weapon battle group we currently have in the game at the moment in terms of the picks you can get. But it also synergizes very well with also the half-tracks that are meant to support your team weapons.
Yeah. Unlike the standard American battle groups that allow for team weapon play, the focus this time is to make your team weapons essentially very high cost or high investment power units. Like Darren mentioned earlier, there is no elite infantry in the battle group to kind of substitute for riflemen. So pure WSC play, again, we'll see what players kind of pull off here. But we don't think pure WSC play will be that powerful with this battle group. Instead, you're given kind of a set of options to choose from to either support heavy barracks play with some very well invested into half tracks and team weapons, or you can go kind of all out into half tracks or team weapons, either or. There are quite a few picks that can synergize together with team weapon play for the battle group. We already touched on some, the 50 cal being a unique one, but rapid reposition being another. And one has Sue unlocked it yet?
Gallant stand?
No, the 5-man.
Oh, no, I think I unlocked it. No, I don't unlock it.
Okay, so we'll talk about that one after. But there's still 2 more picks, which you can synergize with your team weapons.
And we see our 3-inch gun has arrived onto the battlefield. It's being towed.
Yeah. I think didn't it just kill one of my stugs?
No. That was a bunch of Hellcats and the 75 GMC before the Hellcat ran into a Regal.
Yeah, we didn't get to see it too much here, but I've been using the heavy gunnery on the stugs to kind of hold back the infantry that Darren has been kind of throwing at me.
Yeah. So on the Wehrmacht side with the terror battle group, same sort of question. Like, what is your main sort of objectives with that battle group, or some of the strategies that you'll be utilizing as you play any sort of given round? Will, can you maybe speak to that?
Yeah, so the Terror Battle Group is quite robust throughout the tech tree. It's obviously because of the heavy tools that you get towards the end, it's a lot of stalling going throughout the game. You've got the V1 and the King Tiger, for example, which is going to take a long time to get to. But because it supports HMGs early on, light vehicles being able to suppress early on, you want without a tool set. But because its strength is at the very late game, it plays long and wide. The other tools that you have in your at your disposal, things like Interrogate, which we haven't actually seen on screen yet, is going to help you with recon, so using indirect fire along with this, or just planning assaults around what your interrogations reveal will be helpful. But Terror seems to fit quite nicely within the entire faction. There aren't many tools that it decentivizes using, because it also doesn't replace anything straight up. It bolsters and it augments what you already have.
Okay. Anything to top up there, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll showcase that a little bit later, but we can talk about Interrogate here. I think Will and Colin here have been just going at each other really hard here, and we haven't been able to see it. But what Interrogate essentially allows you to do is allows all of your infantry to interrogate casualties that they generate. So whenever you cause enemy casualties, you'll be given the option to interrogate them. Now your infantry do have to go up and actually perform the interrogation, which can leave them vulnerable. But if they successfully carry out an interrogation, what happens is that they get recon of the area around it. You get intel of nearby enemy units. And you also get a tidy sum of experience, which allows your infantry to accumulate veterancy faster. So it's a good way of essentially both getting recon and also buffing some of your the scaling of some of your infantry units if you're less interested in some of the, for example, the team weapon or the vehicle bonuses. Yeah.
Okay. So it looks like, Colin and Darren are kind of hanging on here by their fingernails. But I imagine we're probably getting close to seeing some of these heavy tanks come out.
Yes. I should be near... Oh, no, yeah, I think I just picked up the pick for the KT. I don't think I have just enough resources for it yet. But as you can see, Darren has kind of pushed me off the VPs here, as his team weapons have gotten a little bit too difficult to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe we can speak to some of the design decisions around the battle groups, and why did we pick specific heavy tanks for specific factions? Why did we include certain abilities within them? Or maybe we can just talk about the design process overall, because I know battle groups are a ton of work. They take a long time. A lot of folks, a lot of disciplines are involved when building them and testing them and getting them ready for our players. Jason, maybe you can speak to what that sort of early work looks like, and maybe what that process looks like to sort of, decide oh yes, we're going to have the King Tiger for the Wehrmacht in the Terror Battle Group. This is what it's going to look like, and this is everything that's involved.
I mean, quite a lot has gone into these battle groups. These have been thought about since essentially even before launch. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean we were working on them actively that whole time, but a lot of the ideas, a lot of the inspiration that went into these have been very long cons, essentially. Mm-hmm. Some of the thoughts, or one of the main pushing points for this battle group pack was a lot of the feedback we got around team games where players were kind of lacking the late game heavy tanks. We launched the game with two heavy tanks, essentially, being the Black Prince and the Tiger. And while they've definitely served their roles, a lot of players have commented that they kind of lack some of the flair of some of the other vehicles we've done in the past. So a strong inspiration for this battle group pack has been the heavy vehicles. So in this game, it'll be the Pershing and the King Tiger. Not only just because they're really cool and they're really big tanks, but also because we wanted to offer much more unique gameplay. So, for example, with the KT, rather than just being a straight up heavy tank, or really expensive heavy tank, it's not that much more expensive than your standard heavy tank. However, it does come with the trade off where, as long as it's on the field, the player that has it has a 50% penalty to fuel income. So this is somewhat inspired by how Ko1 did this call-in as well. But essentially the idea is that the KT, rather than having that extreme of an upfront cost, will cost the player slowly over time as they use it. But in exchange, the KT in straight-up combat is one of the most powerful vehicles in the game, straight up. Having the most lethal gun and some of the strongest defenses of any of the vehicles.
Guess what's on the field?
Yep.
You can hear that rumble in the background.
Yeah.
There it is. Finally arrived. Just in time.
Yeah. So hopefully I get to show it off here, but the KT has one of the most powerful guns in the game, both against infantry and vehicles, and it has the highest protection in the game once it starts accumulating veterancy. So right out of the gate, base, it has extremely high armor, though comparable to the most protected other heavy tanks in the game. But once it hits veterancy 1, it gets its first ability, which allows it to have damage reduction to any damage coming from the front, and it reduces it by 25%, which makes it incredibly difficult to kill from the front, though not impossible, as maybe a potential forewarning there.
It should be noted that also, despite the King Tiger seemingly being like a better tiger, it doesn't have the ability to kite as much. It will need to get into range, where the Tiger gets to play a bit further from distance compared to the other heavy tanks in our game.
Yes.
The King Tiger has to roll up into the line to engage enemies or get sight of them.
Actually, part of these new battle groups, we're also rolling out some other changes as well. One of the new changes is that we've gone back to the previous two heavy tanks and spruced them up slightly. The Tiger, I don't know how many players actually knew this, but we're showcasing that the Tiger has the 5 bonus range that it has over all other vehicles. And we're showing that the Black Prince is also getting a new unique ability as well.
Okay. And now there's some drawbacks to having the King Tiger on the field, aren't there?
Yes. So, like I mentioned earlier, you get a permanent 50% drain to your fuel, which means fielding large amounts of vehicles with the King Tiger is quite difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. But the idea is also to kind of make the decision of when you get the KT a little bit more interesting as well. Because once you roll this vehicle out, you are quite committed to it. Now here, I definitely play with fire, where the 3-inch AT guns definitely caught me off guard. I exposed my side there a little bit, and I get lucky, and both of these attack rounds miss. Yeah. So I just barely get away. It's easy with the King Tiger to kind of get carried away, thinking that it's extremely difficult to kill, which it is. But if your opponents bring the correct weapons, such as the 3-inch,
Right.
then things can go wrong for you very quickly.
Yeah. So you know, they can absolutely sway the game, but they can be countered by
Yes.
a smart player.
And also, talking about the 3-inch a little bit, going back to the USF. This battle group offers you quite a few options to kind of make it even more powerful. So we showed off Strong Point earlier. I don't know if you were using that in that engagement. Oh no, you
I don't have it in this one.
Right.
What you will see when the 3-inch disembarks from the half track is that it has team weapon bolster, which it gains an extra man, but also if any of your team weapons are like maxed out on their squad size, like you can't reinforce anymore, they do get a rate of fire buff. So the 3-inch is getting a buff just by having all its squad members alive.
Yeah, and you also took Gallant Stand, right?
No, I have rapid reposition, so
Okay.
my 3-inch gets to reface faster if I need to turn it in any direction. But should be noted, the 3-inch has a lot of buffs going in for the battle group, but because it has that artillery ability, it's not quite as powerful in the anti-tank role as some of the dedicated super heavy anti-tank guns like the 17-pounder or 88, but you can still see that it has quite a large arc. It's able to cover the entire front without even needing to turn really in that center part of the map. And with the team weapon buffs, it does become more powerful depending which buffs you go. And you can see we have the Pershing out.
Yeah, so now we've got these 2 heavies slugging it out. So let's, again, maybe talk about the Pershing a little bit, and again, some of those later U.S. forces decisions here for the heavy weapons.
Wait, here, I threw the King Tiger a little bit too far forwards, and to generate some space, I'm using the Propaganda War ability. Now, what this does is it drops leaflets in a large area, as you can see here, and infantry that enter the area have essentially become debuffed for a while, and when that debuff reaches a certain degree, they are then forced to retreat out of the area. Now, they don't take damage or anything like that, but it is a nice way to kind of deny an area to your opponent, similar to Jericho Trumpet. But in this case, it forces your opponent to retreat rather than debuffing them directly.
Okay, and it's not an instant retreat. You have to wait until they hit a certain threshold?
Yes, there's a timer that starts once they enter the area. And if that timer fully hits 0, then it forces a retreat. So if you're able to get out of the area quick enough, then you don't retreat. Now, I do believe I've locked it in now, and one of the other abilities for Terror is Contempt for the Weak, which gives your infantry a combat bonus whenever an enemy unit retreats close enough to that unit. So the range right now is 15, which means, yeah, you do have to be fairly up close, but if you get your units up close and you suppress them, or through this mechanic force them to retreat, all of your infantry get a capture, decapture, and a combat bonus for a short period of time.
Okay, so it looks like the Allies have swung the VPs back in their favor. So now that we have a couple heavies on the field, we're very much in the late game. What are some of the decisions that you're making with the Terror battle group, Will, on your side here, especially as Colin is pushing back with the Pershing?
Yeah, if it isn't apparent, I'm floundering. Colin has me over a barrel at this point. I lost a lot of units. I still have my Vet 3 HMG, I'm going to be relying on because he's got a lot of power with riflemen. But I have basically no armor, just a single Panzer IV, and with the amount of AT guns on the field, that's not going to cut it. So I'm desperately trying to get more soft grouping onto the field, have more of an elite infantry presence. But there goes the King Tiger, and there goes basically the crutch that I'm relying on, which is not good.
And I don't even get the Pershing here.
So close. So close!
Yeah, I dropped the prop war a little too late there, and he got the snare off on the heavy vehicle. I didn't even know. I didn't even know you were that close.
I'm swearing profusely, attacking ground, trying to kill it, and it's not working. So unlucky.
So as you can see, the King Tiger is not invincible, especially if your opponent brings the correct weapons. But used in better hands, it can be quite difficult to kill.
Yeah, I mean, like, as soon as it hit the field, it seemed to have, like, a pretty major impact, and I could see it running away with the game if you're not smart about it, right?
That's the nice thing about it as well. It's not just a terror weapon in terms of, in-game. For players, seeing a vehicle that big and that hardy coming onto the field, does have a significant effect on you. In the same way that the V1 does as well. As soon as you hear that cry coming in, you have to suddenly change everything you're doing. You don't know where it's going to land, and you have to act accordingly. And ideally split up the big blob of an army that you've got.
Yeah, so I feel like we're probably pretty close to closing this out. So maybe we can talk about, big picture, final thoughts on these two battle groups. Jason, what do we really want players to experience or think about or feel as they're playing with, let's start with the Terror battle group.
Yeah. So, I hope we've managed to demonstrate the themes of Terror are essentially the idea of rendering your enemy weaker in some way, debuffing them, suppressing them, instilling terror, essentially. through their various mechanics, and then exploiting that with your units and infantry to essentially win the battle. You have a lot of area control effects. You have a lot of powerful weapons, but they're all fairly expensive, and you do have to pick carefully. For example, getting both the V1 and the King Tiger takes quite a long time. It's one of the most expensive CP combos in the game. So you do have to be very cautious with what you go for. But in exchange, it does give you a lot of different options to play with both infantry and team weapons and vehicles. With these new battle groups, while we did wanted to focus on a certain part of each faction, we also wanted to keep them as flexible as possible for team games in particular, so that you can try different play styles with them. And I'm quite excited to see what players kind of do with what we've given them here. So yeah, between all of the big toys and all of the little effects that you have, Terra should be a very flexible battle group to use.
Okay. Same question for the U.S. forces. You know, what do we want the players to experience with the heavy weapon battle group, and you know, how do we want that experience to come across?
For the heavy weapons battle groups, we do so. As you've seen in this game, it's a bit more playing a little bit more defensively than the other USF battle groups, mainly because you are.
All it runs over.
But at least initially, you're more reliant on your team weapons than, say, USF usually is. You put more emphasis into them, but in return, you generally have much more powerful team weapons than the rest of the other US battle groups would normally have, either in the form of the better 50 cal, just better team weapons in general from the upgrades that you can get from your battle group, or going the route of the 3-inch gun to get you that super heavy AT gun that USF normally does not get in their core roster to play in, like, you know, open maps that are where you kind of want those sort of weapons to fend off heavy tanks or just armor in general. But it also does give USF the ability to play into that sort of half tracks, and then if you want to go into the route of the Pershing, start playing with your own heavy tank. And that still fits the US theme of high mobility, and movement, while not really being bogged down to one area of the map, while being supported by the various half tracks that you can afford to exchange exchange parts with, or support the rest of your team weapon army if you're playing a bit more defensively.
I see, Jason, you got a Hail Mary King Tiger Part 2 coming out here.
Yeah, and I think this will be a good example of be aware of what you're sending your heavy tank into. It is the most powerful vehicle in the game. However, if you throw it into 2 towed AT guns and a 75 mil, it won't last long.
Not at all.
So pilot error, user error.
Yeah.
Yes.
The user manual says don't drive this into the most fortified anti-tank line.
However, you will be heavily rewarded if you can keep your heavy vehicles on the field for very long. For example, the King Tiger, when it hits Veteran C3, the damage reduction actually extends all the way to its sides as well, which makes removing it very, very difficult. But yeah, and also
It's gonna live long enough, but
it's gotta live long enough. Now, see, on the other side here, Colin has done a very good job of actually getting his Pershing to Vet 3, which allows. It makes this vehicle quite powerful. If your opponent isn't ready for it, there's a lot of nasty tricks
You can see
use
it's
in
just
them.
speeding down without a problem, because
Yes.
it is our only heavy tank that gets a speed bonus when it's a veteran. So it is the fastest heavy in the game, and it will get even faster at the end tier of its veterancy.
Okay. So let me wrap things up with final thoughts. Will, let's start with you. Again, final thoughts on what are you hoping players get from these new battle groups, and the work that you and the team have put into building them out for everyone.
I mean, at heart, I'm a Co-1 fan. That's where I started with the franchise. So seeing Terra return in some fashion, it just excited me from the off. It's something I've wanted to do for a very long time. Obviously, this is a far bigger version of Terra. We've taken a lot of the themes and run with them. And because it's a battle group, you've got 10 abilities in all, so there's a lot going into these. It's been a huge amount of effort to make these battle groups, but it's been thoroughly enjoyable. Now that we're seeing the fruits of our labours, it's wonderful seeing everything pan out. So yeah, we hope you have as much fun with them as we had making them.
Darren, final thoughts?
I think for these battle groups, people quite enjoyed them. Just for the heavy tanks alone, that will give you a little bit more punch to the end of our game if you were looking for those sort of heavy tanks. But we also do provide a lot of other things in the battle groups for that sort of end game. We have artillery that I don't think you get to see the 240 millimeter from heavy weapons, but you have the V1, you have the propaganda bombs. There's just a lot of fancy toys that these various battle groups that provide. Not only in terms of what they give the player, but visually, it's quite enjoyable to see either new weapons being fired off on the map.
Okay. And final thoughts, Jason?
Yeah. Again, echoing the words of my other designers here, like a lot of work has gone into these. A lot of love has gone into these. There's a lot of small details on different things that we hope you enjoy. In terms of what I'm looking forward to is we spent a lot of time trying to think of how to create battle groups that added a lot of options that weren't in the game currently. A lot of different play styles, a lot of new ability types, and different play patterns essentially. And we're hoping that players enjoy that.
Okay. Well, I think this is probably a good place to end things. Spoilers, who wins this one? Tell me.
I mean, when you look at the VPs, you'd think we actually have a chance, but we don't. My army's tiny at this point. We lose.
Yeah.
All right.
Two key teams. I think we throw in the towel just in a little bit here.
Congrats to Darren and Colin for their triumphant victory as the U.S. forces here.
Oh, there it is.
There we go.
It is.
So let's just jump over to our next match. All right, and we are back with game number 2. And this is once again a 2v2 with the Deutsche Afrikakorps and the British forces on our Campbell's Convoy map. So, Jason, maybe set up for us what we're going to see here.
Yeah. So we have a UKF versus DAC matchup, and we're showing off the other two battle groups in this pack. So for UKF, it will be Canadian Shock Battle Group. And for the DAC battle group, it will be the Panzerjäger Command. Both of these have quite strong gameplay themes, which we'll kind of go through as we watch this replay here. But we can kind of start off with Canadians here, where their focus is in the name, Canadian Shock. They have a big emphasis on attacking the enemy. So we wanted to spice up kind of the regular playstyle, which is traditionally a little bit more conserved, a little bit more defensive than all of the other factions, and give them a battle group really focused around attacking the enemy and slamming into them, essentially.
Okay, so we've also changed up the teams here a little bit. We've got Jason in red, Colin, aka Hasu, in purple here, also as the British, and now it is going to be Darren in blue and Will in teal on the Axis side here. So, Jason, you set up the Canadian Shock Battle Group. Tell me about the DAC battle group.
And kind of in contrast to the Canadian Shock, Panzerjäger Command has kind of two major themes. One being a very high focus on anti-tank performance, and the other being essentially a more defensive style. A lot of the battle group is focused around controlling the area and making your faction much better at holding ground. So essentially, kind of both battle groups are going against the traditional theme of their factions to give them essentially new options, new play styles, which we'll try and showcase through this replay. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about early game and some of the early game decisions here. Will, what are you trying to do here as the DAC player in the south?
So the early decision that the DAC player gets to make with Panzerjäger Command is, do I want to go for roadblocks and reinforced barbed wire to do some area denial, or do I want to have better access to mines and minefields? I personally went for minefields very early on. The minefields in this case include their Bouncing Betty 3x3 grid mines. So it's a large area of very light, quite cheap mines. They don't do significant amounts of damage. They're quite reminiscent of the minefields from Company of Heroes 2. But without any tell, there's no warning that they're there anymore. There's no minefield signs like there was in Company of Heroes 2.
Right.
So you can easily wander into these minefields. They set up chain reactions. They're quite deadly to team weapons and infantry, but less lethal to vehicles. So very effective in the early game, and I'm building one right now. I know that because Colin's playing as the British, he's probably going to go very heavy into sappers early on. So I'm going to bait him towards the next best bit of cover so he can wander straight into it. I obviously can't see him approaching at this point, but I'm trying my luck. But if I were to go the other side, the other exclusive choice on this tree, I could go for roadblocks instead, which are uncrushable tank traps. They are a mix of concrete and rubble and Czech hedgehogs. They provide a lot of heavy cover, take a little while to build, but they cannot be crushed by even heavy tanks. So they'll last away into the game until you destroy them with things like satchel charges.
Not quite.
Yeah, I was hoping we get a preview there. But...
It happens. If I'm not mistaken, I bring my HMG up, sit right in the middle of the minefield, and goad him. He's a very brave machine gunner.
So, Darren, what decisions are you making on your side as the DAC here in the north?
So I am playing more into the right side tree, where you can get additional grenade launchers from the 250 if you're mounted. So I've actually gone Panzer Pioneer, and I believe that I've doubled up on the GRB, so I'm actually shooting 2 grenades out the half track. Back to annoy Jason, I'm just going in and out and just lobbing grenades at him, and if I need to, just get some repairs. And this essentially allows me to fight him from... essentially force him out of cover while providing my Panzer Pioneers additional firepower or that they would not normally have, though anyone who enters the 250 will be getting that GRB. You've also seen that I've unlocked roadblocks, but I haven't been able to put any down at the moment as I'm trying to push into Jason's line.
Okay, and I see we have some Canadians
Yes.
on the field. Jason, can you talk about this unit and again some of those early decisions on your side?
Yeah. So the Canadian Shock Troops are quite a unique unit. Now, while Shock is in the name, they're much more of a mid-range infantry unit. Now, they're much more aggressive than your standard Tommies. And they're also one of our uniquely 1 CP elite / advanced infantry options. Where they're not as powerful as standard elites, but they do come much earlier, which allows you to do different build orders with them and also get veterancy with them. They do have quite a few unique elements, which will take a little while to kind of go through, so we'll kind of do that over time here. But the starting point is that they're a 6-man rifle squad that start with the Gammon Bomb right out of the gate, which makes them quite effective at all ranges, being effective with the rifles from long to mid, and then if infantry kind of wander close to them, while they don't have the standard SMGs that a lot of infantry have, close range infantry have, they have the Gammon Bomb that can do very tremendous damage if you're not careful.
Okay, and I know we already had we've seen the Canadian infantry in the single player in the Ortona mission. I'm kind of curious, what work went into taking that unit from single player and actually putting it into multiplayer? Because from my understanding, it's fairly different now, right?
They're virtually like, in terms of their gameplay, they're completely different.
Okay.
We originally started, and I mean, there's quite a few interesting stories about how the dev of these battle groups work, but the Canadians in particular took a long time and a lot of iteration because we didn't want to just create another heavy SMG unit, because the Brits actually have quite a few options, right? They have the commandos, the Gurkhas, the sappers to a lesser extent, and also the guards. So we really didn't want to just make them another SMG unit. And we also didn't want to run back the gameplay that we have quite often of just assaulting through essentially running at the enemy. We wanted to add a little bit of uniqueness to this kind of play pattern. And one of the first things, as you can kind of see there with that giant purple pulse, that's one of the unique mechanics for the Canadian Battlegroup, where on their left tree, whenever they decapture an enemy position, they can fire off an effect that can give them one of two bonuses. One being attacking spirit, which causes all of your infantry to heal, including in combat, or the other being offensive resupply, which I believe Colin has chosen here, which makes his next ability free. So he can throw grenades, he can throw snares, he can call in artillery, and it would be free. In terms of munitions cost, the cooldown is still there.
Okay. So now looks like Monolithic Bacon. Will, you are again being cheeky with mines as you push Colin off. I think we missed a. Did we miss a demo here when it went off?
Oh yeah, those corpses are his.
Okay. Right. So more cheeky mines for you as you get some light vehicles out. What are you doing now on the Panzerjäger command side?
I mean, you would have noticed in that last engagement that Colin was using a lot of grenades against me because he was taking my territory. He was getting those free grenades and firing them off. You also noticed that they were incendiary, which is another component of the Canadian battle group that we'll undoubtedly go into shortly. But I know that I can't stay in cover very long against Colin. I need to be leapfrogging. So I have spec'd into, I can't remember what it's called, Jason, the ability that lets me have combined arms in cover.
Entrenchment?
Entrenchment! So the entrenchment unlock means that I get combined arms whenever I'm in cover. So I'm building cover where I can, and I'm trying to make sure that my units are getting that bonus at all opportunities, but staying mobile, because as soon as he fires grenades off, I can't go back into that cover until the fire's burned away. I've also gone for Tank Busters, which is a unique upgrade on the Panzerjäger unit. I can't afford it yet, it's quite expensive at 90 munitions, but that replaces their anti-tank rifles with a Panzerschreck. When that Panzerschreck is fired from camouflage and gets the first strike bonus, it is incredibly lethal. So I'm currently nursing a single squad of Panzerjägers, getting their veterancy up, and I'll soon get that upgrade and try and take out his light vehicles. It's with justice.
And Darren, what are you sort of doing on your side? Oh, and all it's disabled. Damn.
Oh yeah, he's spotted.
I think at this point, Colin's run into a bunch of mines.
Yeah.
I remember him complaining in chat.
So me and Jason are just positioning on the north side of the map. I'm mainly trying to run into Jason with multiple vehicles. Now you can see I have two 250s with double Panzer Pioneer grenade launchers. So I'm just trying to overrun him with anti-infantry firepower. I'm playing more conventional, even though I suppose double 250s with Panzer Fires is not really conventional, but Panzerjäger Command itself generally plays into like the standard DAC arsenal. You don't really have any major changes that you have to your units or composition until much later. Most of what Panzerjäger Command gives you is augmenting the existing capabilities of DAC. Rather than like replacing it. It's replacing it like other battle groups such as Italian Combined Arms or Subterfuge.
You're building up quite the position here in the middle.
Yeah, it's quite the
And
fortified.
you can see I am building now the roadblocks. You can use the roadblocks as cover, and since they're fairly durable and can't be crushed by enemy vehicles, units can and set up behind them. And I'm also putting reinforced wire down to prevent enemies from using the other side. And it also helps that Panzer Grenadiers can also build these obstacles, so you have more units to set up your roadblocks if you're going the standard DAC build.
Right. So, Jason, what decisions are you making now here? Do you want to talk about maybe some of the other fun things that the Canadians can do?
So, if you look at my Canadian infantry here, one of them has the Piet, which is a new weapon. I believe it's the other one.
Where's your other guy?
I don't know where he is, but
There they are.
Oh, right there. Okay, so it'll be a minute before they're being used. But the Piet essentially is an anti-tank grenade launcher which is quite effective against Axis vehicles. Now, it's going to be quite different from the standard bazookas that allies get. Oh, I'm going for a big push here. And this is the other ability that Canadians get, which is Burnout, which you can call on enemy points, and it'll cause it to decap and also drop a lot of fire on it, which can also synergize with the attacking spirit and offensive resupply abilities that I mentioned earlier. So as you can see here, I have attacking spirit. So by decapping the point with the ability, I immediately trigger the healing on all of my units, which makes this push significantly more durable. Now, talking back to the Piet, it is an anti-tank weapon, so it's not that effective against infantry, but it does very significant damage and has very high penetration. However, in exchange, it is very slow firing, and it has a very significant aim time, giving vehicles a lot of time to maneuver either out of range or essentially just forcing the unit to re-aim, which gives the Piet a unique drawback compared to a lot of the other weapons. And Rush gets a wipe here because I was a little too greedy. I almost get him back here with the sneaky Humber play, but I don't think I don't get all the penetrations I require.
Okay, so now that we're sort of 14 minutes in, what other? Sorry, I was actually going to ask about the Canadian Light Infantry because they also have another ability that I don't think we've spoken about yet.
Yes. So they have another upgrade path. I don't know if we opted into that this game because Darren in particular was very heavy into vehicles this game. But the other part of the Canadians is the hand mortar, the 2-inch hand mortar. It is a unique ability to the Canadians, which allows them to drop mortar rounds at a medium range. They're not nearly as long range as a standard mortar team, but they can use it much more. They're much more mobile, and it gives them the ability to threaten team weapons, to threaten defensive positions, and just drop fire. So one of the other mechanics or sub-themes of the Canadians, like all normal Canadians, there's a lot of pyrotechnics happening, which we'll kind of show off a little bit later. Hasu right now actually has the pyrotechnics ability unlocked. Or sorry, not pyrotechnics, the incendiary munitions, which allows you to, which makes all of your grenades have incendiary effects. So this is what made the Tommy rifle grenade, for those who saw earlier, leave fire on the ground.
Okay, so it's all fire all the time for the Canadians.
Yes.
So I know that's one thing they say about us. We're all pyromaniacs.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so it looks like we have another push here from the British players. Darren, how are you planning on sort of countering here in the middle?
For the most part, I'm mainly playing more conventionally with my vehicles. I'm going to just use them to help drive back the infantry, while my infantry is used more in a supporting role to mainly fix up the vehicles and support the vehicles in this matchup. I am eventually trying to stall out for the elephant, but that's going to be some time before that, so you will be seeing things like heavier vehicles like the Panzer III coming out later to help counter units like the Crusader. I'm hoping that one of the abilities I don't believe I've unlocked it yet is Crew Shock Tactics, which should help shut down some of Jason's vehicles. Simply allows you to designate one of the... pretty much designate an anti-tank unit or a vehicle like the Panzer III, and temporarily allows that vehicle to deal crew shot criticals. But on top of that, I'm also trying to drop butterfly mines to slow Jason's advance. You saw them earlier, they got detected and swept out, but this battle group does have access to very easy to set up minefields in the form of the butterfly bombs that were cleared earlier. These mines are essentially can be dropped anywhere on the map, including into the fog of war, to set up minefields that do decent against infantry, but their primary role is actually to slow the shock and engine damage vehicles, to essentially halt advances into your territory.
So you guys have just like littered the middle of this map with mines.
I don't know what you mean. Oh, there we go.
And you can see a drop happening where the blue is on the mid-tac map.
Oh,
Of the
yeah, I see
butterflies
it.
being dropped
Yeah.
slightly up, higher up. So
There we go.
Yeah.
I'm setting up minefields to protect my forward position.
Yeah, Darren is clued in that I've been attacking through this vector here. And now with the mines here, it's going to get significantly more difficult. Now, the mine drop is a unique ability where you can drop a layer of mines that there's a period before they arm, but once they arm, they become invisible. And like Darren mentioned, those mines are more geared to be effective against vehicles than infantry. Now, if you run a bunch of infantry over them, it'll still damage them quite significantly. But the main purpose is to catch vehicles, either by dropping mines behind them or in this way preemptively. I see that Colin is struggling a little bit here, and I go to help, and immediately regret that decision as I run into the defensive wall that is being built here.
You're on your own.
Yeah.
Um,
I sent the Humber forward to grab some vision, and it's all it saw was this own death.
So Will, what decisions are you making on your side with the Panzerjäger command?
So I'm pretty much in holding tactics here. I'm stalling out to try and get some tanks on the field. I've got a lot of light vehicles that I'm genuinely surprised are still alive at this point. Because I'm not using them aggressively, because I'm playing quite a defensive DAC. I'm using my cover, I'm building my minefields, I'm using plenty of team weapons. So I don't actually have all that great income at the moment. I'm stalling for tanks, hoping that at some point I can run Colin over. But while I'm holding the victory point on my side, I'm sitting tight. I've recently unlocked Crew Shock Tactics, but I don't currently have a great way of using it. I've got an AT gun sat at the back waiting, but no one's coming into range. But as soon as they do, I can enable Crew Shock Tactics on that specific AT gun, and then the next target that it penetrates will become stunned, so then I can close in with my infantry like my Tank Buster Panzerjägers and try and get the kill.
Okay. Jason, for you've kind of got a couple of tanks out on the field now. What decisions are you making with the Canadian Shock Battle Group?
So I'm playing like all Canadians should, and looking to attack. Now, I've already tried attacking through this angle a few times. Now, it hasn't been working that well for me, honestly. So I tried going the other way, as we showed, and immediately regretted that decision. Now, I'm currently going for, or I've gone for the opposite of last game, where I've kind of gone for as much power as soon as possible. So rather than rushing for the heavy tank in the Canadian Battle Group, which is the Crocodile Churchill, I've gone for essentially all of the mid-game mechanics that the Canadians can offer, giving me a lot of offensive power. We kind of saw earlier where I can combine Burnout with some of the other abilities to essentially create a really powerful push, which is something I'm still trying to do. I haven't been able to get that much damage done with these pushes because Darren's been quite good at kind of mitigating them. But I'm looking for another big attack right now. And I believe I've also deployed, yes, so I've started deploying the Demolition Engineers. Now, Demolition Engineers is a bit of a two abilities in one. Essentially what it does is that it unlocks the Demolition Engineer upgrade, which gives your sappers high amounts of damage reduction, and also gives them whatever upgrade they're currently missing. So if they have the flamethrower, they will get the minesweeper. If they have the minesweeper, they will get the flamethrower. So it allows you to run around with very durable, very high utility sappers. As another part of the ability, you can actually call in a pair of Demolition Engineers directly, which allows you, if you saved up the manpower, to quickly essentially take advantage of this mechanic. Now Darren drops a bunch of mines here, and this is a demonstration of how strong it can be when your opponent isn't really ready for them. I have the sappers here, but I actually forget to turn on the minesweepers, which I now do. But as you can see, they can do quite a lot of damage. My Crusader was able to kind of sneak through the side there, but had it run over one of the mines, it probably would have died.
Right.
So that's kind of an example of how that ability could be used. But yeah, but back to the demolition sappers. The other thing is that it gives them demolition charges, which makes them quite effective at destroying any kind of building or roadblock, for example. Though I don't think I get an actual chance of using it.
Oh, here's our crocodile.
Yeah, so by far the earliest heavy tank of of the game. This Churchill Croc absolutely ruins me. Oh man.
So here it's using one of its abilities, and I don't know if you want to talk about the kit that the crocodile has.
So the crocodile is essentially an up-armored Churchill 4 that the British armored uses, same gun as it. The big thing is you have a flamethrower on the front that does significant damage against infantry, and you have much better frontal armor, making the Churchill Croc extremely good at that sort of breakthrough role where you need to push into like heavily defended lines with anti-tank. You'll see this later in the game where it starts deflecting things that you would not expect it to deflect. But the Churchill, for its abilities, carries the same smoke launchers as you saw that other Churchills carry. Its main veteran ability that you're going to see later is once you start damaging the Churchill, it's going to start proccing both offensive resupply and offensive resupply and attacking spirit both at the same time when you get below 75% health, essentially making this vehicle very good at supporting your infantry in combat, but you also are expected, you need to soak up shots to trigger that ability to buff your units.
Yeah.
So you need to be going into that assault role.
So
Right.
as you can see here, the crocodile Churchill has a high-powered flamethrower. So this flamethrower has a much longer range than your standard flamethrowers as well. So while you can only fire it in the forward cone of the vehicle, you'll get caught off guard by the range of it. And one other mechanic that the Canadians have that kind of bring a lot of their fire mechanics together is their ability pyrotechnics, which gives them a unique, which upgrades all of their fire to a new unique effect. It will burn much hotter and redder, which causes their flame effects on hit and on if you run into the flame patches, a debuff that decreases the accuracy and the speed of your units, which can be quite dangerous in certain cases. For example, it also, the crocodile here. Oh, wait, does it survive this? No way.
It does.
Oh. But yeah, for example, the flamethrower could be used to debuff enemy units trying to kill it, or it can be used to set up kills on enemy vehicles as well, because it does affect vehicles.
Okay.
How does this survive?
That frontal armor, baby. Look at those bouncers.
Spoiler alert. But
Yeah.
wow, okay. Okay. That's some RNG.
Does it die? I thought it survived.
Oh yeah, because I think you're coming into the north, so I have to rotate.
Yeah, oh no, yeah, I'm diving on the side here. Then to the left? No,
Oh, very lucky.
Yeah, very lucky.
But yeah, no, we got Crusaders and
yeah, but I think I sacked both Crusaders for this. Yes.
A noble sacrifice for
But
to
that-
keep.
So I'm attacking through this angle again. Try again if it fails the first time.
And
I
you
believe
see,
I get a kill on the on the.
you do see the once in a blue moon Vet 3 250 just because I've been lobbing grenades out those things the entire
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. And man, you get so much value out of these. Look at the suppression they're causing right now.
So Darren here with that was a bit of a unfortunate push from the British for you. So what are you trying to do now with your battle group?
So at this point, I am trying to, since I know the crocodile's on the field and we're going to have trouble taking that on head frontally, I am saving up resources for the elephant in both command points and resources in general. So I'm not trying to spend too much, and my army composition's, well, a little bit lackluster in the infantry. Still has a decent vehicle roster, 2 Panzer IIIs and 8 Rad. And we also have the 2 Vet 3 250s just running around with Panzer Pioneers.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm trying to get out the elephant to counter the Churchill crocodile because this is an ideal map for the elephant. Wide open spaces. The lock down routes and keep your sight lines clear to targets.
Okay. So, Will, you also had a couple panzers running around, but what are you trying to do now?
Well, this is where my undoing begins, because this side of the map is actually more laney than the center, and I'm not planning accordingly for that Churchill just rolling straight up at me. I'm not going to damage it very well if I'm attacking the front. I need to be flanking it, but I don't really have a good position to flank it from. So you could say I start waffling at this stage.
Seems to be a running theme.
Yeah. I don't handle pressure.
So Jason, on the Canadian side, what's the game plan now?
Same game plan as always. I'm gonna be attacking.
Head first.
I'm still I'm switching over to Grants now, as I don't think the Crusaders have worked out too well. Panzerjäger Command has quite a few powerful anti-tank effects. I don't think Darren has used too many of them yet, but like we mentioned earlier, they get the tank busters, which is we have a tank buster on the field, which is a Panzerjäger upgraded to have stealth, assault anti-tank grenades, and also, of course, the counter shred, which makes it quite dangerous. Here I'm trying to get some value with my infantry units while they're using the attacking spirit again, trying to combo the timing of that effect with a push. But I think I'm getting baited slightly because I'm running into these units and just essentially bleeding manpower, because I don't think I'm getting all that much damage done. Darren's getting a lot of value out of the GRB Requisition, which is another Panzerjäger Command ability. If you have any infantry garrisoned in a half-track, as long as they're in the half-track, they gain an extra GRB. So, again, you can have up to 3 special weapons firing out of the 250. And if your unit has 2 special weapons, this ability will actually allow your unit to go up to 3, which is unique.
But we got push on the crocodile again.
Yeah, so you might have noticed at the beginning of that engagement, Colin drops in smoke operation, so it detects all of my units within a radius and drops smoke shells on them. He uses this as a way to blind me so he can start rushing his Canadians up the field, but I have 2 Panzer IIIs hiding behind that, so I rush through the smoke and chase him off, but then end up charging straight into a combined force, and that Churchill escapes again.
Wow. Colin just has like secret powers when it comes to heavy tanks. I feel like everyone else has not had that much success at Colin. It's just been running free with, like, he got the Threat 3 Pershing in the previous game,
Yeah.
and now this crocodile has been somewhat of a hero.
In hindsight, I have the perfect tools to take out that Churchill. If I could have gotten those tank busters in cover on a flank, they could have done some horrible damage, but alas.
Here comes the elephant.
Yeah.
The elephant in the room.
Biggest, chonkiest thing I think we have in this DLC pack. So tell me about the elephant and sort of the end of the tech tree for the Panzerjäger Command.
So the elephant is the utter heavy that you can get it as part of the battle groups. It is the dedicated tank destroyer, since DAC already has the basic Tiger in their arsenal. So the elephant is a long-range tank destroyer, as you might remember from Code 2, but not as long-range as it was there, but still able to keep up with the range of anti-tank guns. It is essentially a super heavy anti-tank gun on tracks. It does good damage, it has good penetration, and a little bit less range, but also a lot of health and frontal armor, so you're not meant to challenge the elephant frontally. Is a unit that you need to either hit the flanks of or go around or force it to reposition, because it is also, I believe, our slowest heavy in the game, on top of the fact that it has a fixed gun.
Mm-hmm.
It also has a funny vet ability where you get to move faster temporarily. Oh, and then we just see the
That
first bounce for the elephant. But I don't think we see it this game. It does have a Vet 1 ability where you can temporarily go faster, but at the cost of blowing out your engine afterwards.
Yes.
Oh, right. What's that one called again?
Engine burnout, I
Engine
believe is the
burnout,
name.
right.
Going into lore of German tanks just can't handle the amount of engines just can't handle the amount of weight they're carrying.
Right. So explain to me why I'd want to use this if it damages my engine.
So the Elephant is probably one of the most powerful vehicles in straight up take front to front fights. There are basically no vehicles in the game that can really challenge it meaningfully from the front. Now, of course, you can overwhelm it with superior numbers, but the overwhelmingly more efficient way to deal with the Elephant is to attack its sides, or even better, if you can get behind it. As it is a casemate vehicle, it's unable to rotate its turret. So that's its main and really its only weakness against vehicles. And so being able to temporarily mitigate that by using the engine burnout ability can be quite powerful. But in exchange for that immediate reposition in that engagement, you are committing yourself to taking engine damage later.
Okay, so obviously, if you're going to be using that, you want to make sure that you can rectify the situation pretty quickly.
Yes. Here, the DAC have taken quite a commanding position. They've held the middle for most of this game here, and I've tried to attack it multiple times. Now that the Elephant is here, it's even more difficult. Though, kind of in preparation for the Elephant, I've gotten out another Crusader and upgraded it with the 6-pounder. I'm kind of looking for an opportunity to use that now that that Elephant is on the field. Originally, I was just going to go more heavy into Grants, but the Grants will often struggle against something like the Elephant, as they're not as good as exploiting the weaknesses of the vehicle.
So Darren, now that you have the Elephant out, what's the strategy here for the DAC on your side to sort of try and sway this game back into your favor?
So for me, it's one, I need to rebuild my tank force. As you saw, I lost both Panzer IIIs, but it's to essentially slowly grind down the allies, picking away at their vehicles, forcing them to go back for repairs, allowing me to get back onto the map and take territory, essentially just trying to win engagements by using those key units to pick away at Jason's more assault-oriented forces, since he kind of needs to close with my army, where I want to keep distance at this point in the game with my current composition.
Okay, and Will, it seems like you've kind of collapsed here on your side.
I still have a large force at this point. My population is almost the highest.
Yeah.
But it's mostly in light vehicles, utility vehicles at this stage. I've lost so much of my frontline force. My infantry can't hold against those Canadians at the moment.
Oh.
Colin keeps using them with smoke
I
operations.
think this is the death push.
Yeah, this is definitely a big push now.
Yes.
So this is the big part, because smoke operation essentially just shuts off my Elephant.
Yep.
Because I'm not able to fire unless I'm attacked ground through smoke, but also we had a bunch of Canadians just overrun the front with Piets, so they are able to just completely overwhelm the line at this point.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have we didn't catch it on camera, but essentially we dropped everything. We dropped burnout. We dropped smoke operation. I dropped the other half of that, which is point assault, which gives your infantry a combat bonus near an enemy point. And with all of that combined, and I think we also cut you guys with a lot of your infantry on retreat. We're able to find and kill the Elephant. Or not? Wait,
No,
hold on.
killed that here.
Almost.
How many bounces?
I've got an
Crack
HE gun
gets it.
behind the line as well that's trying
Okay,
to help out.
there
but
we
not
go.
enough. Not enough.
There we go. As you can see there, even shooting the sides of the Elephant, sometimes you get bounces.
In hindsight, this probably would have been a very good map for the 88 with Panzerjäger Command, because you could also use Crew Shock Tactics on the 88, giving you extreme range to just lock out enemy vehicles, as well as Crew Shock Tactics does not lower your damage, so you are taking shock and the full damage from that unit.
And
All right.
GGs?
GG's all around. So as we kind of wrap things up here, final thoughts on both of these battle groups. Let's maybe throw it to you, Jason. What are we hoping for the players to experience with the Canadian Shock, and what are you hoping to see once players get their hands on it?
Yeah. So I'm quite excited to see what players do with their new tools. Again, a lot of our focus was to expand the playstyles available to every faction, giving Brits a much more aggressive option and giving DAC a much more defensive option. Now, these are just tools and they don't necessarily have to be played that way. So Canadians can be used in other ways. The same thing for the DAC. So I'm quite excited to see what players do. I hope they appreciate some of the options that we've given them between the various mechanics that we've created here.
Okay. Darren, final thoughts on Panzerjäger Command?
At least initially, I hope players sort of put it to what it's initially designed for, which is you kind of try to funnel your enemy into certain position and then either pick off their vehicles with its abilities or key units. We have the minefields and roadblocks, so we'll see how players use that. But as Jason mentioned, players might not be going the initial way of how we originally planned these battle groups out. So it'll be interesting to see how people decide to use the roadblocks, the minefields, and even the elephant to an extent, and to see what oddities come out from the gameplay. But there's quite a lot of cool things in the battle group, like the butterfly bombs, crew shock tactics, and we didn't see it in this match. We also had an anti-armor artillery ability, which is quite powerful when dealing with massed armor.
We didn't get to show off absolutely everything.
No.
Yeah. Will, final thoughts on both battle groups?
Mirroring everything that's been said already, I'm looking forward to how people play with these. We are essentially giving you a toolkit, a way of augmenting the existing factions in a different way. I personally love how the Panzerjäger Command adds a defensive twist to the DAC, which are usually quite complex and aggressive. They're not necessarily the easiest faction to pick up if it's your first time in the game. This gives you more tools to play with in different ways. And Canadians, like I can't say any more about them. I love having Canadians in the game at last, as aggressive and foolhardy as they are. Just looking forward to seeing how people play with these. It's going to be so much fun.
Okay. Well, I think that will do it for us today, folks. As always, if you want to stay up to date on all the latest Company of Heroes news, be sure to follow us Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, and Twitch at Company of Heroes. Join our Discord server at discord.gg/Relic Entertainment. And please join us next Thursday for another live stream where we're going to be covering the new maps, our campaign improvements. We'll be talking Jason and Darren again about the multiplayer balance and all the other fun stuff that you can expect in our second anniversary update. So these heavy tank battle groups will be available on the Steam store in the Fire and Steel DLC pack on February 25th, and that will be the same day that the second anniversary update goes live. So for Jason, Darren, and Will, thank you very much, everyone, for watching, and we will see you next week.